Welcome to Clarity Beyond Numbers. I'm Gunling and I'm delighted to have you with me. In this podcast, we explore the ideas that shape sustainable businesses and future-ready professional practices, from governance and compliance to leadership, strategy, and cross-border opportunities. Whether you are a business owners, practitioners, or finance professionals, my goal is to share practical insights that help you make better decisions with confidence. Let's go beyond the numbers and begin today's conversation. When business owners hear the word tax, what usually comes to the mind? Filing the tax return, paying tax on time, keeping the documents, and making sure we meet the deadlines. All of these are important, but today I'd like to explore a different question. Is being tax compliant the same as having good tax governance? I don't think they are quite the same. Compliance tells us what needs to be done. Good tax governance asks whether the people, information, and processes behind that compliance are working effectively. And for business owners, that distinction is becoming increasingly important. Imagine a business that has always submitted its tax return on time. From the owner's perspective, everything is filed, everything is paid, so we are okay. But behind the scene, perhaps, customer information isn't consistently maintained. Supporting documents are stored in different places. Different employees handle transactions differently. Responsibilities aren't clearly defined. Management only discover unusual transactions after they've happened. The business may be meeting its filing deadlines, but there could still be business blind spots hiding underneath. I call this the compliance trap. It's when we assume that because the final compliance task has been completed, everything behind it must also be working properly. That isn't always the case. A tax return doesn't create the transaction in your business. It reports the consequences of transactions that have already happened. A sales has made, an expense was incurred, an employee was paid, an asset was purchased, a contract was signed, a payment crossed a border. Each transaction begins somewhere inside the business. And this is why I believe tax governance starts much earlier than the filing deadlines. It starts with the way the business operates. Let's consider a simple example. Imagine a business owner expanding into a new type of transaction. The commercial team negotiates the arrangement. Operations implements it. Finance records it. Months later, when the information reaches the person responsible for tax, someone asked, "Have we considered the tax implication?" By then, the transaction has already happened. This is a business blind spot. Nobody necessarily did anything intentionally wrong. The issue may simply be that the business process didn't identify the tax consideration early enough. Good tax governance helps businesses ask the right question at the right time. Not every transaction needs complicated tax analysis, but businesses should have a way of recognizing when something unusual may require further consideration. There's another important part of tax governance, the data. Today's tax environment is becoming increasingly digital, and e-invoicing is a good example. When businesses move towards structured digital transaction, the quality of the underlying information becomes increasingly visible. Think about the information sitting inside your business. Customer details, supplier details, transaction descriptions, tax information, pricing, credit notes, supporting documents, approval records. What happens if this information is incomplete, inconsistent, or inaccurate? I call this data chaos. And data chaos doesn't stay inside the accounting system. It can flow into invoices, reports, tax submission, and ultimately management decision. That's why businesses need data confidence. Data confidence means being able to ask, can I rely on the information my business is producing? That is not just an accounting question, it's a governance question. This is where e-invoicing becomes particularly interesting. Many businesses initially see e-invoicing as a software project. Which software should we buy? How do we connect the system? Who will submit the invoice? Those are valid questions, but there is another layer. E-invoicing can expose how information actually moves through the organization. Who creates the transaction? Who checks the information? Who approves it? What happens when something is wrong? Who deals with exceptions? How are corrections handled? Suddenly, we are no longer talking about software. We are talking about business operating system. Every organization has a business operating system, whether it calls it that or not. It's the combination of people, processes, information, and controls that allows everyday business activities to happen. When that system works well, information flows consistently. When it doesn't, business owners often experience symptoms like repeated mistakes, last-minute corrections, missing documents, confusion over responsibilities, different answers from different employees, and constant firefighting. E-invoicing may not create these problems. Sometimes it simply makes existing business blind spot easier to see. And that's why I believe businesses should look beyond the technology itself. Another important question is, who is responsible for tax inside the organization? The immediate answer might be my accountant or my tax agent. Professional advisors certainly have an important role, but good tax governance also requires responsibility within the business. Management ultimately needs appropriate processes for providing complete and accurate information. Employees need to understand their responsibilities. Significant or unusual transaction needs appropriate attention. And where specialist advice is required, it should be sought at the appropriate time. Good governance creates clarity around those responsibilities. That brings me to another concept, tax confidence. Tax confidence doesn't mean assuming that everything is perfect, and it doesn't mean that every tax position will necessarily be accepted by the tax authority. Instead, tax confidence means having reasonable confidence that the right people are involved, the underlying information is reliable, responsibilities are understood, appropriate processes exist, significant matters receive appropriate attention, and supporting records are maintained. That is very different from simply saying we filed the return on time. Good tax governance also supported something broader, decision clarity. Imagine management is considering a major business decision, perhaps entering a new market, changing a business model, introducing a new transaction type, investing in new technology, or dealing with customer in another country. The commercial questions might be, does this opportunity make sense? But good governance encourages another question. Have we considered the financial, regulatory, and tax implications before making the decision? That doesn't mean tax should drive every business decision. It means relevant tax consideration should not become an afterthought. Better questions create better information. Better information creates greater decision clarity. So when we talk about tax governance, we are talking about much more than tax. We're talking about reliable information, clear responsibilities, appropriate controls, timely communication, documentation, accountability, and professional judgment. These are the same principles we've been exploring throughout Clarity Beyond Numbers. Compliance remains essential, but compliance is the foundation. What sits behind it determines how confident we can be in the results. I'd like to leave you with a simple question. If your tax authority asks you tomorrow to explain how a particular transaction moved from the business operation into your accounting records, into your invoice, and ultimately into your tax reporting, how confident would you be? Would everything be clear? Or would you discover business blind spot along the way? That's the difference between simply completing compliance and building tax confidence. The future of tax is becoming increasingly digital. As that happens, businesses will need more than technology. They will need reliable data, clear processes, appropriate controls, accountability, and sound judgment. Because e-invoicing is not simply about sending an invoice electronically. It can also be an opportunity to look at how information flows through the business and whether that information can be trusted. So don't think of tax governance as another layer of paperwork. Think of it as moving from data chaos to data confidence, from business blind spot to decision clarity, and from simply meeting deadlines to building business confidence. Because compliance tells us whether an obligation has been addressed. Good governance gives us greater confidence in the people, processes, and information behind it. And that is what it means to see clarity beyond numbers. Thank you for joining me on Clarity Beyond Numbers. I hope today's episode has given you valuable insights and a new perspective that you can apply in your business or professional journey. If you found this conversation helpful, do follow the podcast and share it with your colleagues and network. Remember, numbers tell us where we are, but clarity guides where we go next. Thank you for listening, and I'm Gunling here signing off. See you in the next episode.